Welcome to the show, everybody. Today we talk about prospecting, and you're going to hear some very different opinions on prospecting as we kind of work our way across the table. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's one of the hardest things about being a salesperson. The other three, Nanette, Clint, and Al, all love it. So don't necessarily listen to the person who you normally resonate with. Listen to the person who is in the industry closest to your current industry. And if you're getting any value out of this, please share it with someone else. This is hard enough as it is. It doesn't need to be harder. And if you're listening to this, leave us a review. We read all of them. That's how we improve. Follow us on social media. Everything is at Sales Throwdown. And I hope you enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. In the D corner, we have Clint the Cleaver Bigelow. In the I corner, we have Al the Gambler Daniel. In the S corner, we have Nan the Promoter Foreman. In the C corner, we have John Small Mountain Hill. Let's get ready to throw down!
Welcome to the show, everybody. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about prospecting. Actually, a lot about prospecting, because it is hands down the worst part about being a salesperson. Does anyone disagree with that statement?
I think it's the easiest.
I kind of agree as well.
Let's talk about. Hold on. Before we get into prospecting, can I share a story about something that I messed up completely, and I'm kind of curious how you guys would handle it?
Oh, I
Please
can't
do.
wait.
Shoot, yeah.
Real life
let's do
story
this.
from the field. Okay,
Yep.
I get a referral, right, and I get pretty good insight into this referral, right? There's an internal champion there who's not the decision maker, who will kind of build themselves up to be the decision maker, that they've got clout, but to be aware that they don't. I said, okay. I go meet with this person, and it's in an industry that's got a lot of oversight and regulation, and that typically doesn't work very well for what I do anyway, because the more oversight, the harder it is to put client information into do good CRM management, into an outside CRM. So I meet with them, and there's so much pain, right? Pain. I really need this. I'm not going to be successful. I really want to leave my mark and everything else. Okay, awesome. What do you think we should do now? And he's like, well, come in, talk to my counterpart. He's the president's son. Okay. I said, okay, cool. I'm happy to do that. I'm a little bit curious, though. I feel like the president's going to have some concerns about what we're talking about here. How do we make sure that his concerns get addressed? And he says, well, come in, meet with his son. As long as we are on board, united front, we'll be good to go. Perfect. Awesome. Right. So I go in, I meet with both of them. Once again, all kinds of pain, right? They really want what I'm doing, right? And this is the trap, right? Because they're so optimistic. Oh yeah, man, we need this, we need this. And so I leave that meeting, and then the problems kind of start. It seems a little expensive. Said we talked about budget. You guys kind of gave me the budget. Feels like something has changed. Can we talk about that? Blah blah blah, all this stuff. And then the president is out of town. President is back, and all this stuff. And so now, me and the original guy have got pretty good rapport at this point, right? And so we're texting back and forth about the deal and what's going to happen. And he was like, well, maybe I should just start using a CRM. Yes, obviously. And then once they see how good I'm doing with it, then that will prove that you should come in and help us out with this thing. And I'm like, okay, can I tell you my concerns? And he says yes. And so I give my concerns to him. That typically if it's just one person, it's not a united front, not everyone's bought in. You're probably dealing in a couple of other systems, and then you're getting pulled in multiple directions. And that's not really how I work, right? I have very much a burn your boats mentality. So I said, I listed that out, and he was like, man, that makes complete sense. I said, what do you think we should do? And he was like, well, let me keep working on it. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm just going to let you know. I'm going to close the file, though, because right now we don't really have a next step, But I'm curious from the other people here at the table, right? How do you run that differently than I did? Let's start with the D, because he's queuing himself up over there.
Well, I think you did everything that I probably would have done. You would have got the information, right? You did a good job of getting that. I think it happens a lot in all our businesses, to the point where people, when we go back home after a first meeting, it's kind of love is in the air. That honeymoon phase is like, okay, we're all gonna get into this, and then time goes by, a week goes by, a day goes by, whatever, and all of a sudden you start realizing that this isn't really a fit for either one of us. Like, we're not ready to make that move. We're not ready to make that investment. We're feeling pressure from the sales guy. In this case, that's you, John. So a little bit of pressure from you, maybe asking a lot of uncomfortable questions, which is our job, right? That's what we're supposed to do. So we're supposed to dive in and get that pain. We're supposed to really realize the gravity of the situation that they're in and whether that's real or not. I think that you had all the right decision makers in that situation. I probably, because I'm gut feel, I think I wouldn't have divulged so much information. I probably would have dropped them quicker. But the good and bad of that, right? So I drop it, I move on. I'm going to go find somebody else to spend my time with.
Sure.
Now you're not spending a lot of time, so it's not that big a deal. This is a couple text messages, a couple emails, a couple phone calls, whatever it may be.
2 meetings.
Yeah. So it's not that big of a. You didn't lose anything.
No, and I've got a point to make after I hear from y'all.
I'm sure you do. I guess
can't wait.
in my
Tension.
in my immediate business, I think that once I get that gut feel of people pull back just a touch, it's over in my book. And that's my industry.
Okay.
So when people love to talk about ideas, people love to get an idea to go pass up the chain of command to their bosses, So, hey, I reached out to this guy. He gave me a budget of like $2,200 a month. This is what this CRM is going to cost us. We're going to, here's my presentation. They say, okay, great. Thanks for doing all that research. That's the end of it. And that's one step of not getting to the decision maker. In my business, that deal is dead. There is no funding. There is no money. It's an idea. It's an idea on a wall full of ideas that you're throwing darts at. So for me, I'm done. I'm out. I'm moving on to something that has real clout.
Interesting. Al?
So the two things that stuck out in your story is they were giving up pain. Didn't sound like you were having to ask too many questions to get to, what their issues were.
So that's a good point. The first guy is really eager to make his mark in this new company because it's a new role for him inside of a new company. So he is trying to bring some structure because the old organization that he was with had a lot of CRM and management and forecasting and things like that. So he wanted to bring that in and kind of be the guy who is leading the charge on this thing, right?
So you colored that picture a little bit better, but.
Yeah.
So he wasn't holding back. He's like, here's my problem.
Absolutely.
So it seems to me that then the son comes in, and I'm just going to call him Puppet, right?
Okay.
Because that's what I think sometimes, right? And until proven otherwise, right? Are you just a legacy, So I got Daddy's foreskin here, and I'm having to peel that back, right? To get to the real meat of what's going on, right? Which is the guy who can actually sign the check and make that happen.
Okay.
And sometimes I think that the president's son, hey son, let's see what you're made of. Go handle the situation. And he doesn't know dick about what we're talking about.
And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I threw that out as kind of tongue in cheek, but I immediately would have been trying to take it away.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Because the pendulum's way up high and they are very excited about, what's going on. So start really, I'd just start trying to destroy it.
So you're talking about like the opposite of like leading the witness, right? Asking questions from that negative point of view to kind of see if they're going to move with you.
Right.
Okay. I feel like I did an okay job of that, right? Hold on, Nan. Do you have any? Or you said you had two things. Was that all of it?
Well, no, it was just that one guy's real excited, but you explained why he was so excited, and so that made sense. It wasn't part of your story. And then, the son, is he just a proxy for the dad and he's taking up space, or does he have real value in this whole equation?
Absolutely.
And those were my only two things. And so there's where you test that, right?
Yeah. So in your story, how much time did you spend with them?
I had 2 meetings, probably 4 or 5 emails, and then 3 or 4 text messages.
So for me, there wasn't enough bonding and rapport. I think there needs to be a lot of bonding and rapport. So when there's issues come up, there's relationship that you can bank on to continue.
That's actually a really good point. That summed up what your problems are. Nan, I agree with you 100%. Bonding and rapport prior to those meetings gets you a lot of insight.
So,
Wait!
Sorry.
I gotta stop. So, are we talking Sunday dinner bonding
No.
or
No.
rapport? I'm
No.
like, I mean, if his sales cycle runs that quick, you run it, right?
that's how I feel about it.
Okay.
But now, why don't you finish? I'm sorry, I cut you off. Will you finish? Because that's a good point.
I just think that when you have issues come up, if you haven't established any relationship,
Okay.
so you're thinking. So I guess from what Al said, he can't do that with every client. So every prospective client.
But I think that was already stated that he was at a different position. I'm assuming bonding and rapport had already taken place. So we were just talking about the meat and potatoes. Of
I
what
guess
we-
I didn't assume. So I was like, so when did you create some kind of?
So this brings up a really good point, though, because you had bonding and rapport with the guy that wasn't the decision maker.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
So I've been beating myself up about this kind of exchange for like a couple of weeks, like trying to think about how I could have handled it better, what I could have done differently, which is just kind of like how I do things. So, my connection, my internal champion, my white knight, whatever you want to call it, has been very on point as far as his communication with me. Hey man, like I'm still working on this and everything else. So it's not like they went dark, right? Which at least there's that, where I failed, where I did not do a good job was I didn't press hard enough. But on the other side of things is that sometimes you're not going to get your way, right? And this is kind of the conclusion that I was coming to today, because I was journaling about it and trying to figure out like how would I handle this in the future, because I can make the decision to be like, hey, look, if I can't talk to the real decision maker, we're done. I got to go.
well, you'll never get a meeting.
Absolutely, right? So I did the best that I could, right? I asked questions around the decision maker, tried to get them involved. They've got this kind of weird convoluted board process about like everything goes to like a committee and everything else like this. So
Let's not forget the fact that you truly. I don't want to dime out anybody and call them a liar, but you were lied to. Because if somebody says we need this, we're excited about this, because I know you too well to go through that process, and do it correctly.
My walls were up from the jump start of the referral because of the industry that they're in.
But
I was
look,
like, this is never going to go.
But at sometimes we all go into those meetings, and they're excited, and that's a lie. They need this. That's just a lie. They're just excited that you're there and they're talking about something. Some people are like that.
Some people are.
So
yeah.
I'm not saying it's a majority. I'm just saying sometimes this might be one of those deals where you just.
But take his story just at face value. Let's not try to build something that isn't there, right?
Okay.
If you have a question, I think you should ask John that. And
I don't think I was lied to.
I was
Right.
going to say it wasn't lie. I think
I firmly believe that this guy really sees a ton of value in instituting some like sales systems and processes and good CRM habits, because he'd seen it at the last organization, right? So I don't think he lied to me. I just don't think he was nearly as influential as he thought that he was, right?
I totally agree.
And if they're set up in a way to where you're never going to get to the decision maker, then you can draw that line in the sand and say, hey, if I can't talk to them, I'm out. But
if I did that, I would probably never. I would get half the jobs that I get. If I
Sure.
set a line in the sand to say, if I can't talk to the decision maker, I know that's a very important step in our sales process. I agree with it. But sometimes you have to build confidence, like you're saying, in your white knight or your internal champion on the other team to sell this for you. And you have to give them all the tools to do that.
That was my point, that you have to create relationship in steps.
We
It
try.
can't-
And I had no real rapport with the president's son, right?
Sure.
Just one meeting, he thought that this was kind of good. He was a process oriented guy. He was not a D or an I. He's somewhere in the C sector with me. So like I'm talking about this and he's nodding his head and everything else. So I just think that I think that I put them in a bad spot to have to go sell me to someone else, which is not really what I'm ever trying to do. But sometimes you got to play ball with what you have. So at least I uncovered as much as I could, right?
Mhm.
So it wasn't a total loss, because
No.
I'm not working in the dark and
You didn't lose
hoping.
You didn't lose anything.
right?
That's
well,
the thing.
and you gain. Anytime you do something, you've gained something.
other than the breaths of air and the time that you never get back, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's a big wrecker, right? Sometimes your time is way more valuable than what you put into it. In this situation, I think You didn't lose anything.
But
You only gained.
I'll preface that. If you had nothing better to do during that time, there wasn't a better prospect, there wasn't a better something to
So-
be after, because there's where you need to rack up your disappointment. Oh, I could have been doing this.
Yeah,
Now, if you don't have that statement that you can say, then
Yeah.
you're fine. You know, use your
Agreed.
time. I mean, hey,
For sure.
nothing ventured, nothing gained.
and this kind of ties us into like tonight's topic of just prospecting in general, because
Oh,
The-
is that what we're talking about?
now we are. Yeah. So
I like it.
the in my opinion, the difference between people who kill it in sales and people who don't are the people who manage their time incredibly well and can cut ties and walk away from something, right?
Completely agree.
In prospecting, you're not going to win every prospect you sit down across from, right? It just doesn't happen.
Don't try. Don't
Yeah.
even try.
Absolutely, right?
So
Because
you can't be disappointed.
right, you manage the
When
leading
you-
indicator,
yeah.
right? And then you just kind of trust in the process and the results because you have data to kind of work on. And this is me being the database
I was
guy.
gonna say,
I know that not everyone runs the same
Say,
program that I do.
Speak for yourself when you
Well,
say data. I'm
well-
like, it's called the bank account. Is there money or is there no money?
Still data.
Still data.
It is.
It is, right?
It is. It is a leading indicator.
It is. Well, it's a lagging indicator, right?
It's a lagging indicator.
yeah.
Correct.
The leading indicator is the thing you have control over.
Yep.
The lagging indicator is what is the end result of the thing.
Oh, there's always a smart one in the room. Okay. I stand corrected. Roll.
So prospecting.
Edit for Dr. Daniel.
So prospecting, right? I feel it's the hardest thing as a salesperson, but you two guys both think that it's the easiest thing. And I was kind of getting the feeling from Nan.
I like it.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
do.
for Nan, I'm gonna start with you
Okay.
because hold on, I'm starting with Nan.
Yeah, I want to clarify it.
Okay.
It's the hardest
Please do,
thing,
Clint. We can't
easiest,
wait.
hardest thing, easiest thing, fun thing are three different things.
All right, so what are you labeling prospecting then?
Well, I'm saying I think it's the easiest. Doc also said that. Nan says it's fun. That's different than being easy.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Everything's easy.
Not
Everything?
Not following.
till it's not.
All right, so
You
Nan.
didn't track on that one?
No, I didn't. I must have. Yeah, it must have gone over my head. It's been a big week.
Imagine that.
Big couple of weeks. Yeah, and I'm not. I'm a little punchy today.
You're the
All right,
Lone
so-
Ranger.
So Nan.
You're
so
the only
Nan-
person in the whole world that's had a tough week, Dr. Dan.
In
Prospecting.
my mind, anyway.
Right.
Pain is unique, right?
All right.
Back on topic.
Next,
Prospecting.
2S,
Right?
prospecting.
In your world,
Yes.
in healthcare and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that involves typically a lot of drop-ins. You
Well,
know,
yeah.
and lunches is kind of the big thing, that everyone talks about. What is that? Is that your two main avenues? Are there other avenues for prospecting that you do?
Oh, I love referrals. I love working with offices that know, someone in the office and I can go to that person. Cold calling for me to go into an office, I love. I think you just are striking up another relationship. Now, it is all about relationship for me and hearing from other offices, another office to call on and someone they know and reaching out in that aspect of, I don't know, a white knight, another white knight.
Mhm.
I just think once you have a trusted client, then they can refer you to another office and you're going to do well because they're going to be comfortable with you initially. So you're not like this brand new person walking in the office.
So, in your book of business now,
Yes.
right? Like what percentage of that has come from referrals versus how much of that do you think is coming from just like cold walk-ins?
Probably 80% is referred because it's so small, in the medical field, it's so small. So you're just calling on a very,
80%
Wait a
referrals?
second.
That's incredibly
Wait
high.
a second, because I think you're speaking relative to your longevity in this industry,
Right.
which is now. When you first started,
okay, when I first
'cause
started,
there's a
it was
difference there.
nothing. Yeah.
It
That's
needs to
true.
be
That's
noted,
true,
right?
For sure.
Yeah, and no, I agree with that. Seasoned veterans in the group are just going to make contacts over contacts over contacts.
Absolutely.
Right.
And over time, you're going to build
Okay,
a book
so
of
But when
business.
she
initially,
first
that's true.
started, and she still does. I mean, I know for a fact that you walk into offices you've never been into,
Yeah.
but you've been into a lot of offices just because your time in rank.
But I also think the new offices, the cold calling, that was in quotation, that you are calling on, you still need to do some investigation. Is what kind of business do they do? I don't it's predicated on what
So even though you're referred, you're still running the sales process. You're still running them through your
figuring out what kind of business they do,
No,
how many.
when she says referred, that's different than cold calling because she still drops
No,
in on.
agreed. I'm
offers.
saying, but either way, you run them through your process.
Absolutely.
Is your process
Yeah.
different from like a cold walk in than to a referral?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
Mine is as well.
Right.
Do you think your referrals? You said it's really high. That's
Well-
awesome. One, do you think it's personal or because of the company that you work for?
Oh, personal for
No,
sure.
definitely the company she works for.
No, it is totally personal.
That is one bad mofo. Just saying.
But
Excuse
even
me,
though
that's something in my throat
even
there.
though
Bullshit.
people love you, somebody's.
People trust me. They know
Okay.
that I'm not going to.
But you still have
jack
to
with their
perform.
business,
You still have
right?
to perform.
Right.
Right.
You got to fulfill.
Right.
Fulfill. There you go.
Right.
Better word. So
Yeah, I think that's a way better word.
Well,
Thank you,
well,
John.
no, then why are we practicing all that like dog? You know that little horsewhip thing that we do.
Clint, were you saying something?
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
back to prospecting. Let's
Back to
talk
Clint.
to Al. All right, so Nan's business, because she's been in two kind of main industries, and they've got a lot of overlap, right? You know, you're calling on the same people. So I've seen this happen with you, right? You know, you go into an office, and then someone's like, "Man," and it's someone that you've known from like the pharmaceutical side,
Right.
and now they just work in this other office and they remember you,
Right.
right? But your ability to be memorable to people who you have not seen in years was always astounding to me, right? Because like people would see you and just, whereas I feel like I'm pretty forgetful, or forgetful. is the right
Only
word.
in your own mind.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
I
That's
mean,
not true.
I guess it's a compliment.
say,
how
it
can you
is.
forget a small mountain, man?
I don't know, man.
I said that's not true. I think it's not true. I think you're very memorable. I think you're very, very.
God, that S
kind.
flares so hard.
All right, I'll
Well,
stop.
Mm,
So-
it sounds like I was
making
fishing
nice.
for a compliment, and it
Yeah.
was not the case. All right, so Al, prospecting.
It is clearly a combination of longevity, but I started new
Mhm.
and knocked on a lot of doors and hated it with passion.
Wow,
So-
I never knew that.
You told me a story one time that I still think about, and I laugh every time I think about this, because
Okay.
being a chiropractor, right?
Mhm.
You knew a lot of these like surgeons and people like that, because like if you couldn't help them, then eventually you'd have to refer them to someone,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you go into a surgeon's office, and the guy says, "Did you lose your license? What the hell are you doing here?"
Exactly. Yeah. He brings up a good point. So yeah, when I made the transition out of clinical, of being like a portal of entry
Mhm.
that was now referral base, and basically I had two businesses. One was retail and the DME side of things, bracing and things like that. And so when I got into dead body parts and the bigger aspects of healthcare, if you will, like
Can I tell him what you really did? He's like, if I'm going to meet these surgeons, I'm going to have some spine surgery. And so he decided,
Stop.
it's like, I'm going to have my L4 worked on.
No, that's not
Sorry,
true.
that was rude.
That's not true. But I took one thing that I had been successful at and
Mhm.
had built up, and I parlayed it into another. And it's leveraging. It's leveraging relationships. It's leveraging who you know for who they know, and it's the domino effect. But every time you turn a new venture, meaning you start into a sales role at a new company or you start a new endeavor in sales,
Mhm.
you shorten the learning curve, first of all, right? You use all the tools that got you where you were to get you to the next level. And even if, and I'm going to speak to the guy that just got his first sales job, right? The incredible thing is that if you're the frontline guy, if you're making things happen, if we're calling it sales and you're facing the prospect,
Mhm.
the guy that will buy, then keep that momentum going. No matter where you go, use the talents that you developed out in that field or in your field to reconnect to everybody and ask them who they know in your new field.
Oh, that's really
Right?
interesting. Okay, yeah, I like that idea.
Because I could look left and right, and we're all from the same geographical area, and we could talk about restaurants that we know of. We could talk about places we've been. We could build some common ground just off of proximity.
Well,
right?
yeah, for sure. Right. So one of the things that I think about all the time is these people that are graduating from college,
Mhm.
right? And like you've got a good network already, right? So, call those people and say, hey, I'm working on this thing, right? Because like no one's going to college because they want to be a salesperson, right? Like it just doesn't happen that way. You're hoping for something else, and then you get done, and then you can't find something you want. You're like, okay, I guess I'll go, sling this stuff.
That's silly.
What's silly?
They should go to college for sales.
Okay.
We'll need you to elaborate, Clint.
I will
Well,
later.
when everybody eventually, gets out, guess
Mhm.
what? You're in sales now, guys.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Everybody's
absolutely.
in sales. I don't
Okay.
care
You're,
what
you're
doing.
selling yourself until you get a job. and then,
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, no, you hit it.
Mhm.
But
I
they don't.
agree.
But colleges really don't get that. Medical schools don't do that. Most of your education is going to be predicated on what they call didactic, right? What's the cortical information you need to
Mhm.
know for the
Yeah.
process that you must get out there and do. But before you can really do your process, somebody's got to be willing to
Somebody's
pay
gotta buy
for
it.
it.
Somebody's
Right.
got to buy you.
Yeah, they got to pay for it. So coming out, but you hit on a good thing. And I think when you go to, if you're a junior college graduate, then maybe everybody lands locally, and which is a
Absolutely.
good thing, which
Yeah.
I encourage that. Go to a community college
Yeah.
because most of those guys are going to springboard into local businesses.
Yeah. Mhm.
They weren't born into that pedigree
Yeah.
family. They're not moving out to the East Coast, West Coast. Now, you graduate from Harvard, then I would be looking at a multinational company because
Yeah.
those guys are going to fly to
Sure.
the wind, and you're going to have the whole world as your oyster.
Absolutely.
And
But-
most of your hungry people are recruiting from those community colleges.
But let me stop you. You can make millions of dollars in a 1 square mile.
100%.
If you're in the health district of any community,
Construction.
if you're in construction,
Yeah.
dude, you don't have to look very far. Quit with the bullshit.
Quit
right?
with the
That the
excuses.
rainbow, right? The grass is greener over there. Wherever you're effing standing, that's where you start.
I agree with that. So for you for now, right?
Mhm.
How much prospecting do you do now, or is most of what you do now just kind of managing your existing book and kind of nurturing those relationships?
It's a lot of that, but I have other people that do that. So I want to be able to turn the process of the sale and the completion of the sale over to somebody else so I can get to the next one.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Okay. Because like most people try to offload it the other way, right?
The sales side of things?
Yeah, I know so many entrepreneurs who are just scared shitless about like having to be like the salesperson for forever. And so what they try to do is they try to offload sales, and then we're not really great teachers and delegators just by default. Those are learned skill sets, and so then you go out and you hire some people, and because sales gets treated the way that it does, sink or swim, and you might make it, and then I'll know your name and all that shit that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we've got these like terrible sales cultures like in some of these companies, but it's awesome that, because it would be easy for you to just be like, you know what, I'm not the sales guy anymore. I'm just going to step back and I'm going to run this thing,
Yes and no. I mean, would you ever want to get out of, and I'm talking to Clint here to my right. I mean, because there's a whole process that comes behind you.
Yeah, I don't know that I would trust anybody to take over my book of business tomorrow.
Oh, that.
And I feel that exactly the
I
same way.
totally feel that way. I could
Wow.
never let someone
Well,
say, go find
okay,
business
I can
for me."
send somebody over,
Mhm.
but they're an extension of me, right? They don't ever back up. That sounds a little egotistical.
But it's correct. Hold on. Hold on. Because
God,
that's
I was
correct.
trying to be nice.
No,
but
don't
yeah.
be nice, because literally when you hire a new sales rep to do your job, as you move up in the company or you take over your own business, you've got to hire somebody to do what you've been doing as a business owner, growing a business, and now they have to perform it, and they have to ensure the same confidence that you ensured in your customers.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
tough.
Okay, but true. But
It is very
hear me
tough.
out on this. I'm not here to create a job, right?
For yourself.
No, I'm here to have a business.
I agree.
And as a
Yeah,
business
doing the same
owner,
thing.
I
Sure.
have to be I want to be on the forefront of doing it as well as everybody else.
So what better way in our world to be able to pass that on if you have a good process built
Oh,
and you learn somebody into that process?
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
best case scenario,
Mhm.
but most good business people have a process. That's why they're at the top of the business. That's why they bought their own business. That's why they're doing their own thing.
They're a leader.
That's I think that's a forgotten thing, and
No, for sure.
especially in prospecting, is that you went out there and you killed it. You went out there and you got people to trust you, and then you followed up and and you did what you said you could do, and then all of a sudden you hire somebody else that goes out there and is not you anymore. That's tough.
It's super tough.
But if you have a process, if you take what you know and you put it down on paper and you have data to back that up because you track it and you put that into your process, that's a whole lot easier to hand over than hiring some dude off the street to say, go sell my business.
And that's what I thought. I believe we're doing here is we've been successful. We know how to do it, and we're trying to teach people or show people how we've done it.
For sure. There's this great book that talks about this very thing, right? It's called the E-Myth, right? And if you ever
love that book,
if you ever have aspirations about starting something, like go read this book. It's
short read.
It's amazing
For some of you.
But it talks about this very thing that
Are there big words? Are there pictures?
what sometimes happens though is you're holding that stuff in your head and you've been doing it for so long that it becomes instinctual.
Yeah.
And the minute it becomes instinctual, it becomes really hard to teach it to someone else because it's just like, oh, this is just this thing that I do. Like trying to teach your kid how to like tie their shoes from like the opposite end.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a nightmare.
Yep.
And I've got lots of patience.
Tie a tie on a buddy's shirt.
Oh,
It's impossible.
can't do it.
I can stand behind you and do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can tie it for you and throw it over your neck, but I can't teach you to do it from my side.
Exactly.
So I went
I was
to
gonna say that.
Nanzavec
So-
got a story about that.
So, my oldest son was getting married, and this was last April, and Dr. Daniel's there, and the all the guys.
We get
was
this emergency call.
like help. So all the guys, because they had bow ties, right? Is
Yep.
that what they all
They're
had bow
trying to
ties?
tie a bow
And
tie.
so, and he wears bow ties, so he was
Of course he
savvy on
does.
it.
Dapper.
And that's all he wears
Badass
is just a bow tie.
Badass bow
Dapper and
ties.
bow ties don't work.
Anyway,
Well, when you work for Chippendales once upon a time, come on, man.
Oh, you
understand.
meant bow ties and nothing else.
Oh,
Clint,
I'm
I
on-
said that
I'm on
30
you.
seconds ago.
Oh,
I
I'm
said
sorry.
that's all
Yeah.
he wears.
Sorry, I
Okay.
don't listen to most people. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so anyway, so all the guys come over and they're like, help us. And he was struggling because it is hard.
Well,
He's
I
used to doing
eventually
it.
went nut to butt, right? I just
I have
reached
no
around
idea what
them,
that.
right?
Oh,
Over their
that-
shoulders.
sometimes.
I have no idea what that
Sometimes.
meant.
Sometimes that's how
What
you
is
get it
that?
done,
Sometimes.
right? And I'm like, guys,
It-
get ready.
It was very sweet. Sweet
so,
moment.
So yeah, I agree with the tying of shoes, and so anyway, a little bow tie.
Why
story.
did I say it was a sweet moment in a sales?
I don't know.
Sorry for that, guys.
Okay, so Clint,
Don't ask me. Ask you. See you next. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm not
about
ready.
prospecting?
Yeah. I'm not ready.
God, this is so C, but I treat it like a process, right? Like each week I've got certain things that I must do before.
You do
Yeah,
a process?
I know it's weird.
Yeah.
No one's used to this as the C. But like I have certain things that I will not allow myself to quit work on like a Friday evening without saying that it's done. And having that, roadmap, whatever you want to call it, allows me to be just like secure in the process. Because before this, right, but before I like kind of went through this process of kind of creating my prospecting roadmap, whatever you want to call it, I was the annoying guy without realizing I was being annoying, right? Like all my friends knew me as, oh, John's a sales guy. He's always selling, because like I always was, trying to sell and trying to find the next thing, find the next prospect, And when I sold cell phones and banking and everything else, like everyone was so tired of hearing about it, right? But I'm running around talking to people that are not qualified prospects, so
Sure.
I'm just the annoying guy like everybody else. And then, through reading books and talking to coaches and working with people and everything else, it's like, oh, I can just put this in a process and then I can just run my process. And then when it's done, then I can move on to other stuff. And that was a huge impact for me.
Click.
How much did that process save you on time, resources?
So that's a good question, right? It depends upon your goals, right? Because the thing about it is you have to adjust, right? If I think a certain number of asks and cold calls and referral asks and LinkedIn, connection requests and things like that is going to get me to a certain number of qualified conversations, which leads me to a certain number of closed deals, I have to be willing to adjust that if I'm not hitting those milestone metrics. So you kind of have to adjust and make changes. And my prospecting behaviors from when I was in the website world are completely different than my current prospecting behaviors as, the CRM consultant.
So, along those lines, but in a different sense, you built a process, and you exercised that process, and then you just went through the numbers, right? You just started,
Absolutely.
Opening doors. Yes, no, yes, no, yes,
Well,
no.
it's
right?
your favorite thing, right? Work with the end in mind.
Right.
Right. I had a monetary goal that I wanted to make,
Okay.
and then I started to think about, okay, how much do I make off of each deal? Right.
Yeah.
What does a client bring me? How many of those clients do I need? And then I break it down into like an annual number and then a monthly number,
Okay.
things like that.
But more specifically, so when you went in with your process, when did you know to cut bait or get out of the way and move on to the next one? What I mean, and I know that may be different for every sales engagement,
For sure.
right? But did you build that process with, if I get here and does the algorithm go to a point that says, if no, get the fuck out?
Yes.
If yes, then,
For sure,
proceed.
right? Because the thing is, there's a big difference between being a salesperson and being able to draw awareness around potential gaps in someone else's business, and then being able to talk about,
Agreed.
hey, I might be able to fill those gaps. Does that make sense to have a conversation about it? And just being an order taker, right? There's a huge world of difference between those two things. And excuse me, didn't mean to cough on the mic. You got to be able to cut bait, because once again, I have to save my time, right? Because it's not in the website world, we had developers, right? So like I would sell a deal, we'd build a scope of work, we'd take payment, cool. Here's your project manager, and like let's get this thing done. But now I'm also handling all the fulfillment, right? So I have to balance my prospecting with my fulfillment, which is kind of like a sliding range depending upon how heavy the week is in one side or the other. But I've got to protect my time. Like, I mean, it's the most important thing to me, because if I spend too much time with a prospect who's not qualified, then that's taking away time from a build or a process creation or talking to someone else who does have pain.
So you just hit on something, and I'd like to know, everybody, what's your qualification process? How do you know that you've got a good prospect in front of you?
That's a good question.
Because there's the key to sharpen your sword.
Well, because that's the thing I was going to say a moment ago, and then we got sidetracked, is that I don't think that prospecting is the hardest thing to teach somebody. I think that the qualification side of things is harder
And
to teach.
there's where I sink my teeth in.
And I think that salespeople get a bad name because there's this stigma of, the sales guy's going to sell anything, and it doesn't really matter if we can do it or not, because they're going to overpromise, and then it puts a lot of pressure on the back end team. That typically happens because that salesperson doesn't have a good idea of what qualified actually means.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It might also be that they've got a shallow pipeline, and then they're just
They're
hustling.
stabbing at everything. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, trying to
But-
pick everything up.
Right.
Most times it's just there's not a clear line of communication around, hey, you brought this in, it wasn't really a good fit. Let's figure out why this wasn't a good fit, and that way we can not deal with this shit
Yeah.
again.
Who are you talking about in that situation? So you're talking about working for somebody as a salesperson?
Yeah, I'm
You
talking
brought
about
this in and somebody told you that it's not a good fit?
absolutely.
That's
Does that ever happen in your business?
well, no, it doesn't. Oh, it happens in my business. It doesn't happen to me.
Of course not.
Of course. Yeah, my point exactly.
Well,
yeah.
The point of it is
I
if
didn't say that it was.
so in my defense is that if my boss, who's not a salesperson, or
Mhm.
anybody above me ever told me that, I've failed my process.
For sure, but like you're not the norm, right? You're the outlier, right? You've done so much work on yourself and your awareness, and you've talked about that first year of you working for your company of just like sitting down and analyzing what clients and what partners make us money and which ones don't.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
not the norm.
Okay, but wait a second. We're talking to a bunch of people out there. So, I mean, we
Absolutely.
can sit here and pat ourselves on the back and
For sure.
be our own
Well-
parade, and we,
Okay, yeah. So, are we ready to move to me?
We're on you. Go ahead.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to look the other way
Oh.
now. Go ahead. Keep
No.
talking.
Well, do you have any more to add on it as a C? So, if you had to wrap it up, what do you?
For me, it's you got to know when to cut bait, right? And
Yeah.
that's not the easiest thing for me to do because I like to be a fixer. So if
Yeah.
you come to me with this problem, oh man, like let's figure this thing out. So I've got to draw some awareness, and then I have to kind of poke and prod and see, and hey, is any of this relevant to you?
I think
Right.
for a C and an S, it is hard to.
For sure, right? Because I
For
have
sure.
facts. You told me that this sucks.
Yeah.
Let's fix it.
Yeah, and,
I want everything to be okay
Mhm.
as an S.
Okay, but that's like a bad girlfriend who's got a complaint that just
I
wants
know,
to hear you.
right?
She just wants to talk.
Absolutely, but like this is me trying to fight outside of my comfort zone, right? Because I'm such a fixer that I
Yeah.
will spend
you'll take anybody on.
I won't now, but it is
Agreed.
in my
But
wheelhouse to
but a
try to
high
do
C
that.
out there listening, that's your
Yeah.
probably your biggest weakness, that you'll try to fix everybody's problem and fail at all of them instead of focusing on one that you actually have a
Yeah.
Even when
common
they want you to
relationship.
go away, you're like, but I could help you.
Yeah.
Right.
I wrote a line. I'm a big fan of daily journaling. We haven't really talked about that here, but we will eventually. But for probably a year straight, I had to write this thing that I can't help everybody, and that doesn't make me a failure. I got to spend time with people who are willing and able.
Sure.
And eventually,
Dude, that's cool.
my
Yeah,
mindset kind of shifted around it.
words.
But it is in my wheelhouse if I'm stressed out
Repeat
to
that
spend
so we
too much
can all
time.
write that down and start saying that daily.
No, repeat that one more time so
Yeah,
people
I
can
like
hear
it.
that, because that's really
Seriously.
good.
I hold on. I can't help everybody, and that's not a failure. I have to spend my time with people who are willing and able.
I like it. Yeah.
Well,
that-
thank you. All right, so Clint, D, prospecting.
T-shirt. Let's all get a T-shirt.
Absolutely.
Team D t-shirts.
No,
Deal.
no one needs those.
I'll buy 4 of them. Even one for Paul. Yep. Fist pumping back there behind the sound
Behind
stage.
the scenes.
So
Our
prospecting. So let me skin this cat a little bit different than you guys did. Go back to your book of business and look at the people you already do business with. So my very first prospect in my mind is not to go find prospects that we don't already do work with. I think for me, the biggest gain is look at the people you already do business with and have you maximized that potential, because that's prospect in my mind.
So okay, but isn't that farming as opposed to hunting? Or if we're going to use these like
Agreed.
cliched
Because
labels.
you got
No,
people
hold
coming
on.
out that don't have a book of business,
You're-
right?
okay,
They have
okay.
nobody to
So if-
do what you're doing.
Let me rephrase. If you have a book of business, first rule on prospecting in my mind is to go back to who you're already doing business with and good customers, and make sure that you're maximizing potential. There's
Contract.
step one,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And I think if you do that,
And that works because some of you guys have inherited business. You've come
Sure.
in after
Absolutely,
somebody
yeah.
else. So
Yep.
you keep
And-
speaking.
and
I'm
so-
just saying
and sometime-
there are bigger implications.
sometimes you
there.
inherit stuff that you need to repair, right?
Oh,
but
absolutely.
they're already a customer.
Yeah, they're just in the cycle.
You know that they do the work that you do. They know that they need your services. It's been proven in the past by past data because they've done work with you, right?
Right. All you need is
So-
one, and then you can do that.
So in my mind,
Exactly.
step one is to, like you said, John, farm, right? Make sure you're producing maximum yield for your crop. That's one area of prospecting for me that works well in my industry. I don't know if it is for everybody.
It works in
Because
ours, too.
sometimes you're a one-off sale.
Mhm.
Maybe you sell a CRM, John, that's the only sale that I can make to them, and they're already using me on the one sale. I get that. My next point of that is, if you've maximized that potential, now I go for a very tactical, very deliberate focus on one person. I don't go to big
Stalker.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it is stalking. I stalk what they do, their business, what kind of jobs that they do. Does that fit us? I qualify really hard in the prospecting phase. And I do that before I even make a phone call, before I make an email, before I do anything. And I get as far as I can on the information highway, whether it's research, asking people in your business, common acquaintances that might know, LinkedIn, right? I see that you know this guy. What do you know about these guys? What kind of business do they do? Do they pay well? Are they a good customer? Do they pay on time? All these things are questions I ask long before I even venture into chasing after somebody and prospecting. So step 2 for me is information highway. Get as much as you can, and it's out there. It's all over. You just got to make some phone calls, and once you have that, now I'm looking at how well do you fit my business, right? With that information that you've gained, how well do you fit my business, and is there enough information to make that comparison? If there's not, now I need to make a phone call. Now I need to make an email. Now I need to have a sit down with somebody and qualify really, really hard. And all of those really hard questions that most people are uncomfortable asking, in my personality trait, it's not so hard. That's why I say I think prospecting for me is very easy, because I'm willing to walk into a conference room and in 2 minutes willing to walk out of a future client.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
So why do you walk out?
because they don't qualify. So if I have hard,
So real quick, right? So far in this episode, I feel like we've been talking about prospecting in a very nebulous sense, right?
Absolutely.
Not
Okay.
not incredibly
Absolutely.
actionable, right?
Mhm.
So, Clint, when you're going into this board meeting, like
sure.
what's the biggest thing that blows something up for you to where you're like, you know what, I got to go?
Well, I'll tell you right off the bat because of who I am, it's a very gut feel. I had a conversation today with an estimator and my boss in the same room about a project that they took on without me in the sales process. And I totally feel that this is going to be a bad job, going to be a bad partnership. It's not going to go well for anybody.
Mhm.
And they're continuing to move on because the data's there, they're farming. My gut feel says it's not all there. I've done my homework as well. It's not there. So for me, step one in that situation is gut feel. How do I connect with these people? Are they willing to give me the information I need to make this successful? Are they willing to get out of their comfort zone and hear what I'm actually asking? Because I'm asking important questions. I'm not just asking to ask.
And these are internal people inside of your company. Is that correct?
In that situation, yeah,
Okay.
these are internal.
And so,
But if I'm on a new call with somebody that says, "Hey, we've got a job, come look at it. We want you to come over to our office today and kind of do a meet and greet and see what you're all about."
Yeah.
The first thing everybody wants to do is present
absolutely.
this big, "Hey, look at the project we got. I want you guys to do all of this." Okay, so first question that I would ask is like, so you guys are you guys going out for 2 or 3 bids or 5 bids? Oh yeah, of course, that's our process. Well, it's interesting because you said you only wanted to use us, so I'm a little confused. You talked about partnership maybe on the phone or in this meeting. You talked about safety requirements. You talked about all these qualifications that you have for me. I also have those same qualifications back. And now if you don't mind, indulge me a little bit, but I have to ask those questions. Because if you don't qualify the same way that you did to us, then I don't know if this is a fit. And I want to get all that out there before we start talking about plans and drawings and money.
So if this is your first episode and you're not really sure, Clint works in construction. So
Okay,
you know, and
sure.
and that's an important thing to talk about.
Yeah, it is. It's a very
Legos
connects. Connects are a little bit better.
makes these amazing things. They're just beautiful.
But I will say that I don't always do the best at it. Sometimes I get a little bit of
I know. Clint just admitted a little bit of failure.
no. I'll back it up. Hold on.
Somebody's gonna die tonight.
There are times where I get a little giddy. I see a big project in
Oh
front
my
of me.
gosh.
Did you
Take
just
yeah,
the
wait,
glass
can we see
away
was that
from him.
giddy on top of?
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah,
Take
you
it away.
sometimes.
yeah, you got to drink after
You're not
making
drinking
that
water,
comment.
obviously.
Shit, we're all talking over
You
each
get
other.
happy.
That was a big moment,
Look,
That
guys.
was a huge
What
moment.
what'd you call it a long time ago? You said sales horny. You get sales horny, right?
That's true.
You get
Yeah.
happy feet. You see a big project in front of you, and somebody's like, I think this is a $10 million project. And you're like, oh man, $10 million. That could be us. We could do this.
For sure.
And you get blinded by that giddiness.
been a contender.
But I'm dealing with a situation right now. That's $11 million deal. That's a big deal for us.
I'm getting. I feel something.
So that's a big deal for us. That's a 6-figure payday if everything goes right on the income side, right?
Mhm.
That's a big
That's
deal for
sweet.
us.
Yeah.
So I can tell you right now that I actually had an internal meeting and I said, look, I know that they're going to go out to bid against us. They're going to use our competitors to try to get the best number. That's okay. I'm not scared of that. But I also know that company that's hired this GC to go out and get those bids is also looking at other GCs. So now we're not one of 3 anymore with qualified
Yeah.
bidders.
Oh, you're like
Now-
one of like
Multiple
100.
But now we're one of
branches.
9.
Yeah.
So the really messed up part is phase 1. This is phase 2. Phase 1 was about $6 million, and we did great for them.
Oh, you did phase
We
1?
did phase 1. They only went to us. They only bid to us. We gave them a fair price. We didn't make a killing off of it. We knew that phase 2 was going to happen. We want to be a part of that. And you add those two together. Now you're talking money. So we went in pretty conservative on the phase 1.
So
My point is,
as my
this.
grandmother says, you gave a little lanyap on the first one.
Yes, absolutely. Is she German?
Yeah.
Did you
Cajun.
Cajun.
did you kind of set expectations around this idea of like hey, look, we're happy to give you a deal on phase 1, but
Yeah.
if we do that, we'd like to really have the inside track on phase 2.
Yes. I probably didn't do that as well as I should because I learned about phase 2 a little bit down the road.
Okay.
So phase 1 to me wasn't phase 1. It was just the job. Okay. So right now, we're about to enter into bidding process and negotiations, and now I have to go back on how they know me, and I have to reiterate this process, this very tough process that I can almost guarantee you they're going to disqualify themselves in my own process after about 6 questions.
So what are you going to do?
And that's tough, right? Because that's a prospect, a new prospect for a job, whether it's a job or a new customer. It's still a prospecting thing in my sales projections for the year. So my hard part is that I'm probably going to have to disqualify a $10 million job and walk away from it. And that's going to be really tough for the C-level people in my company to hear.
So how do you? Okay, so going for the no is obviously or being okay with no is super important. Being a salesperson, you're obviously okay with the no, right? And that just comes as part of being a D. How does that relate to the people in your company that are above you? Like, is there pressure? Like, hey, Clint, you need to close this deal.
Of course, it's like why would you drop a $10 million deal? Clint, we did phase 1.
Yeah,
why would you
because-
drop it?
Yeah, my question is, I get where you're coming
Yeah.
from, but can you let go of it?
Easily.
You can.
You know what? To be honest with you, I'd make a phone call and ask all these questions I'm about to ask and walk away from it without ever even seeing drawings on it.
Can we do that on the air? I'm just kidding.
That'd be interesting.
That would be super
Oh,
interesting.
that'd be so fun.
No,
For us
but
only.
but one of my biggest
We're going to
questions.
do that one time, guys.
Yeah, we
We're
will.
literally going to do calls
I'd
on
love,
the air.
I'd love to.
That'd
get
be fun.
I'd love to get a hold of a gatekeeper on this show.
Yeah.
You're on
Anyway.
the air.
No.
No,
what
don't
do we
tell
have to
them.
tell them
What
that?
about a pattern interrupt? That
Yeah,
what a huge
man.
pattern interrupt.
Yeah, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm on a sales show. You're on the air right now.
So I know that I got a little deep into stuff on the prospecting. I will say qualify really hard. I chase the 10% more than the 90. The
Agreed.
10% qualified, I chase those people because I know that I have a lot better chance moving forward with that smaller community than going out there and getting big number, bringing in volume and getting a little bit off of it.
It's the 80-20 rule.
For sure.
Correct.
You know?
We yes.
And we probably alluded to that,
Yeah.
and you guys out there probably understand. Yeah, 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your prospect.
Absolutely.
And hone down.
Yep.
Figure out what that looks like in your world
Mhm.
and get with it.
Yeah.
And look left and look right. Look at the other people that you're not the only guy or gal out there selling or doing what you do.
Be better.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Find whoever's doing it better than you and emulate, glean, understand, take them out to dinner, ask for help.
Let me give
Hold on. We got to wrap up.
Well,
We could talk about this forever.
give
Is
me
this gonna be quick?
give me a second on the 80-20 rule because
Yeah.
I have some insight today. We're
Should this be part of your throwdown?
no.
Okay, go
Um,
ahead.
This works very well in your 80-20 comment because right now we're strategic planning for 2020. Who do we have in the pipeline? What's our growth potential? We're doing all those numbers right now. What's funny is that I realized in my CRM yesterday that I can actually do all of my yearly sales plus my growth with one of my customers.
Oh, so you want to stand on a soapbox and tell us how good he was?
No, my point is that
Is everyone clapping?
I have 20 customers that I'm doing all that book of business with. What I'm saying is that you
love it.
you don't always know your potential of your existing
Oh,
customers.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
So
No, I knew.
before,
I knew where you were going.
before
with that
you
when I
go
said
out chasing chickens around the yard, maybe look in your own kitchen because there might be a chicken breast in the
and
freezer.
I'm going to call everybody out because that's
Oh,
what
please.
you guys do. That is half the sales. A bunch of chasing and nothing happening.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
And they on car lots, in industry, everywhere.
Mhm.
You're chasing, but you're not getting, and you're making a living, right? But you're not a superstar. You're not at the top of the list. You're not on the board
Yeah.
higher than that guy. So if that's what you're doing, and you guys all know if you're doing it or you're not. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a radio, it's
well,
podcast.
So on that point, right? Like some companies just want to reward being busy as
Yep.
opposed to being productive.
That's right. There's
Right.
a lot of companies out there like that.
Sometimes you're not in the right fit, right? And sometimes you might need to make a change to go work at a company that's got a better sales culture than the one that you're at. Because if you're in the same where you're just, you're taking bullshit meetings, and then you're filling out the CRM to like placate someone, but like, you're not moving anything forward.
Yeah.
Right. Your time is better spent doing something else and being more productive.
But if you're doing that, you're looking over your shoulder because they got some kid getting out of college that's about to replace your ass, right?
Oh,
if you're not driving yourself, if you're sitting there like the bump on the log, then that's on you. Hey, I hope somebody takes your job.
Yeah,
I
you
really
have to have
do.
a desire.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you're
I
a
agree
warm
with that.
bucket of spit. You're not out there making it because in this industry, you can live the lifestyle that you want to live. You can do the things that you want to do. You can put your kids in college wherever they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
If you get up and you use some of the things that we talk about.
Show up every day.
Well, but don't just show up.
Well, yeah, show up and run the program.
And do the run
Awesome.
the program.
Yeah.
All right, so we're at that time of the show, right? It's time for the throwdown.
Wow,
Man.
love our guy behind the scenes,
Paul
man.
is all over it. All right, so
Ding
2
dong.
minutes from the D, the I, the S, and the C. Clint, the D. Go.
Yeah. So on prospecting, I would say maximize your potential with your current customer base. Really make sure that you're utilizing that, because if you're doing successful projects with the customer, make sure that you're maximizing everything you can do with them first. Then go search, right? And then once you're searching, qualify really hard. Be tactical, be deliberate. Go in there with a plan of why you're chasing this customer, and get all the insider information that you can get by asking, by referrals, by social media accounts, by just online knowledge. Do that first, take a next step. And what I will say is, to qualify hard, you're going to have to ask questions. And those questions, to every personality, may not be easy. It's easy for some versus others. If it's hard for you, I'm sorry, but this is the game that we're playing, and you're just going to have to gut this shit. And you're going to have to get tough, and you're going to have to get calloused, and you're going to have to ask these tough questions to get in there. Because otherwise you're going to be led with a big, long foot chase that's just never going to end.
Awesome. Al,
Yeah, well put.
R, I.
Look left, look right, look up, look down, look around yourself outside of the little, the microcosm that you live in and the way you do business, to how other people are doing business, what their prospects look like. Find people who are successful in your own industry, emulate their activities, have no fear, like Clint said, and show up and perform. And extend yourself and be somebody that somebody wants to talk to. Be engaging. Be head forward in the sense that you're better than yourself. It is a show in a certain sense. I mean, look at TV. Be the best sitcom on the block.
Okay. Nan, R-S.
So I love analogies. So I'm going to use fishing, fly fishing. And I think the biggest thing is to persevere, like to get up every morning early. Don't be lazy. And if you want to be successful, you have to have desire. So create it. If you don't go out there thinking you're going to be a failure, have a great attitude. But with fishing, you have to know where to stand. You need to know how the water's flowing. You need to know where you're going to throw your line. You need to know what bait to use. Have a plan. Be persistent. And don't be a wimp. Like, I can't tell you how many people have just go, oh God, this is too hard. I just can't. No, be positive. Know what you're doing. Basically figure it out. That's why listening to us is going to be helpful, because you don't think you can just go out there and walk anywhere into any office or any client. And if you're going to capture, you better have a plan, and you better be persistent and have guts.
And if you catch no fish, kill your dog and have meat.
Catch fish. Have the right bait.
Or
All right.
dynamite.
So for you C's out there, this is not anything new, but build a process, right? Take the time to figure out how much you want to make, what's important to you, set goals, and then figure out what does an average client bring in. How much of that goes to you if you're not an owner. If you're working for someone else, like what does a deal pay you out for commission? And then figure it out from there, right? It's not sexy, it's not super fun, but for me, the minute I did this and realized, oh, all I really need to have is like 3 decision maker meetings per week, and I'm gonna make the money that I want to make. That takes all the pressure off of me, and then I'm not caught in the paradigm of more, of like I need more business, more clients, more money, right? Because I've started with the end in mind. The other thing that I'll say is figure out the commonalities and the people that you're killing it for, and then narrow, because I feel like your conversations are so much easier if you are very, very niched as opposed to the generalist, right? Because no one wants to spend time with a generalist, but if you can be extremely relevant to one person because of you only work with this kind of client, I think that your conversations are a lot easier. So awesome.
Yeah.
This was a great episode, and we could talk way more about prospecting, and we will another time.
Yeah,
but
we'll circle back around.
for sure. So follow us on social media. Everything is at Sales Throwdown: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you like my shirt because it's pretty dope today.
So I don't know if you can tell it's camping. It's firewood with flame.
Campfires.
I thought it was rocket ships.
Well, sometimes you see what you want to see.
It's his Girl Scout uniform.
It's art. It's art. So I'm right.
So yeah, follow us if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe. So that way
Hashtag your team.
Yeah.
Team D.
Yeah, there's not a lot of those. And
7.
Yeah, if you get any value out of this thing, Team P for if you're Paul behind the
Paul,
mic,
yeah,
helping us out.
Paul, a little
If-
shout out to Man Box.
Huge
If the
man
girls
person
ever
plan.
get to see P, he's lovely.
making these tones so
He's so lovely.
amazing. So
I know the age that we live in on the social media, which we're putting out there, is you guys are going to give us your comments, but we're really looking forward to it. Right?
absolutely, yeah.
I want to hear what you have to say about prospecting, your do's and don'ts, what works, what doesn't, because
Yeah.
hey, we're learning too, right?
Yeah, put that stuff on social media, right? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah,
you know?
get with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want
Tell
to
us
hear.
what you want.
Yeah, we'll see everybody next week.
Bye, y'all.